Have you ever stood in the middle of a crowded, rain-slicked street, surrounded by millions of people who scream your name, only to realize you are completely and utterly alone? For decades, Hollywood has celebrated Keanu Reeves as the ultimate internet darling, the immortal savior of the Matrix, the lethal ghost of John Wick, and the single kindest, most generous human being to ever walk the silver screen. The world looks at his peaceful smile, his humble clothes, and his quiet charity, and they envy him. They think a man who conquered the peak of global cinema must possess a life of profound fulfillment. But behind the cinematic lens, behind the heavy curtains of his quiet existence, lies a terrifying, raw reality that was chiseled in the deepest fires of tragedy. Keanu Reeves didn't just survive Hollywood. He survived a psychological hell that would have completely incinerated an ordinary man. Today, we strip away the action hero facade to uncover the forbidden truth, the unhealed scars of a broken childhood, the violent loss of his blood brother, and the devastating slow-motion agony of a father who watched his entire world turn to ash. This is the tragic eclipse of a legend who won the world, but lost every single person he ever loved. To truly understand why, a 61-year-old man with a $100 million fortune chooses to sit alone on a cold park bench, sharing his bread with birds. We must forget the movie posters. We must travel back to the unstable, shifting sands of his childhood. Born in Beirut, Lebanon, young Keanu carried a name that meant cool breeze over the mountains. But his early life was a raging desert storm. Do you see the psychological pattern here? A child's mind requires an anchor. But Keanu's father abandoned the family when the boy was a mere 3 years old, a man who would later be arrested for heroin trafficking, leaving a vacuum of rejection that chiseled a deep, permanent sense of instability into Keanu's soul. He was dragged across continents, from Lebanon to Australia, from New York to Toronto, moving through 4 different high schools. Constantly the outsider, always the boy who had to pack his bags before he could even learn the names of his classmates. He found a temporary sanctuary in ice hockey, earned the nickname The Wall for his fierce defense, and dreamed of representing his country. But the universe made its first cruel strike. A catastrophic injury permanently shattered his athletic career. He was pushed into the cutthroat world of acting, running on pure survival instinct, carrying a colossal hunger to prove his worth to a world that had rejected him from day one. He didn't crave fame. He craved a place where he could finally belong. But Hollywood doesn't grant belonging. It only grants illusions. By the early 1990s, Keanu Reeves was beginning to taste the intoxicating high of global success. And it was during this ascent that he met his psychological twin, River Phoenix. Picture the bond between them. 2 young, brilliant, intensely sensitive souls navigating the hyper-fake, predatory ecosystem of young Hollywood. River was a golden boy, a poetic genius, and Keanu's absolute closest friend. They weren't just co-stars in My Own Private Idaho. They were blood brothers who shared their deepest vulnerabilities and swore to protect each other from the dark temptations of the industry. But what happens when the fragile mind of a genius is consumed by the chaotic darkness of fame? On October 31st, 1993, the match was struck. River Phoenix collapsed outside the Viper Room Club, dying of a catastrophic drug overdose on the cold sidewalk. At the tender age of 23, let's look straight at the raw human behavior here. For Keanu, this wasn't just grief. This was a brutal awakening. The man who had spent his childhood fleeing abandonment was suddenly forced to watch his anchor vanish into thin air. Keanu blamed himself. He carried a silent, heavy guilt, wondering if he could have stepped in, if he could have been the shield to protect his brother from the storm. He locked the pain deep inside his chest, threw himself into frantic, dangerous action roles like Speed, using the adrenaline of cinema to dull the sharp edges of a screaming reality. He believed if he ran fast enough, the ghost of his brother could never catch him. He was wrong, yet the most tan-cock and world-shattering domino had yet to fall. In 1998, at the absolute peak of his career, while filming The Matrix, Keanu met Jennifer Syme. If River Phoenix was his brother in arms, Jennifer was his angel of peace. She was a gentle, grounded woman who saw the real, scarred man behind the leather trench coat of Neo. For the first time in his entire existence, Keanu began to construct a true home. They fell deeply in love, and within months, Jennifer was pregnant with their first child, a daughter, to be named Ava Archer Syme Reeves. Can you feel the immense hope of that moment? A man who had been running his entire life was finally about to hold his own blood in his arms. He bought a home. He prepared the nursery. He believed the universe was finally balancing the scales. Then came Christmas Eve, 1999, 8 months into the pregnancy. A routine ultrasound revealed a quiet, horrifying truth. The baby's heart had stopped beating. Ava was delivered stillborn. Imagine the sheer suffocating agony of a mother and a father holding a cold, silent infant inside a hospital room decorated for Christmas. The grief was so massive, so toxic, that it completely incinerated the foundation of their relationship. They couldn't look at each other without seeing the ghost of their dead daughter. They separated. But the universe wasn't finished with Keanu Reeves. Just 18 months later, in April 2001, Jennifer Syme was driving home from a party in Los Angeles, despondent, heavily medicated, and consumed by grief. She crashed her vehicle at high speed, dying instantly. She was buried next to their daughter, leaving Keanu standing alone before 2 matching tombstones. They say, when a man's heart is shattered into 1,000 pieces, he can either become a monster or he can become a saint. Keanu Reeves chose a path that completely baffled the cynical predators of Hollywood, following the total annihilation of his family. The global box office of The Matrix exploded into billions of dollars. Keanu was suddenly sitting on a colossal mountain of wealth. But what is money to a man who has to return to an empty mansion where no one is waiting? He gave away over $75 million of his earnings to the special effects and costume design teams. He bought Harley-Davidson motorcycles for his stuntmen. He funded children's hospitals anonymously for decades, never allowing his name to be printed on the walls. Let's decode the deep psychology behind this behavior. His legendary kindness is not an act of charity. It is a defense mechanism. It is the profound, desperate reaction of a man who understands the absolute fragility of life. He spreads warmth to strangers because his own inner world is a freezing, desolate landscape. By helping others survive, he finds a small transactional purpose to keep his own heart beating. For over 20 years, he refused to buy a house, living out of transient hotel rooms with a single suitcase. He rode the public subway, ate alone on street corners, and wore shoes held together by duct tape. He surrendered his ego. He realized a terrifying psychological truth. Wealth, power, and Hollywood magic cannot buy back a single breath of a dead child. Look at the Keanu Reeves of today, a man in his 60s, his long hair streaked with gray, moving with a quiet, solemn grace through a world that continues to worship him. He has survived the public trials. He has conquered his demons, and he has finally learned to live in total surrender to his consequences. He is a living textbook lesson in the law of resilience. He didn't let the tragedy turn him into a bitter, resentful cynic. Instead, he allowed the pain to break him open, converting his personal agony into unconditional compassion for a broken world. he chose to be the light, even when his own sky was completely dark. Every time you watch him on screen, or see a photograph of him sitting quietly in the rain, remember that his silence carries the weight of an entire history of love and loss. He chose to survive, and survival is the loneliest victory of all. What about you? What are your thoughts on Keanu Reeves's incredible journey through the depths of tragedy? Do you believe that his permanent loneliness is the ultimate shield to protect his heart from ever being broken again? Or is his life a beautiful proof that true strength lies in remaining kind no matter how much the world hurts you? Share your thoughts and perspectives in the comments section below. Let's start a conversation. If this cinematic deep dive touched your soul and gave you a moment to pause and reflect, please hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to the channel today so you never miss our next journey into the hidden lives of history's greatest legends.